recorded at Get a Grip Studios in Toronto, Canada. Get a Grip Management production and in association with the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Presented by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, the National Lighting Bureau, the Illuminating Engineering Society, and of course, the International Dark Sky Association. This is Starving for Darkness. Hang on a second here, folks. That's right, hang on a second. Michael Colligan, co-host of Starving for Darkness here. Just to tell you real quick before we get into the conversation, which is super important for you to hear, that you need to go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com, especially if you're a contractor or a distributor, Greg Eric.
That's right, and they're coming out with a new exterior line of product, or they have come out with it, and they're going to continue to add to it, and they're dedicated to making dark sky friendly lighting and potentially dark sky compliant as we go. For now, though, they do have a dark sky full cutoff wall pack, a variety of wattages, Kelvin temperatures, and a precision crafted optical lens that's ideal for increased fixture spacing and uniformity. So less lighting fixtures needed because it can provide more light out of the one fixture. So check that out.
Go to KeystoneTech.com. That's right. Hold on. Here comes Starving for Darkness. But before, KeystoneTech.com.
Hello, listeners and darkness lovers. Welcome to another episode of Starving for Darkness. My name is Jane Slade, and I'm here with my co-host, Michael Colligan. And we are very excited to have Dajana Bjelajac here today. She is a natural-born educator who gets into the hearts and heads of who she is teaching so that she can best convey her messages about light pollution. Currently, she is a teaching assistant and PhD student at the Department of Geography, Tourism, and Hotel Management at the Faculty of Sciences in Novi Sad, Serbia. I'm so excited to talk to you today, Dajana, about all of your wonderful work towards our mutual pursuit. And we start every podcast with the same request, which is, could you please tell us about a dark sky experience that you had that just moved you, that left you without words, that made you feel human and also like there was something much bigger than humanity?
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me and thank for this lovely introduction you made. And as for the experience, well, I have to be honest, when I experienced it, I wasn't aware of light pollution at all. I was at some field trip with my students, colleagues in like 10 years ago. And we were in some really rural area, dark area, and we were coming back home after some long hiking, and we caught the dark, of course, and it was so dark but so bright at the same time, because I haven't seen so many stars in my life ever before, and I actually saw my shadow from the natural light. So I was like,
I love that.
Fascinated. I've never seen that something like that before in my life, and I guess it's a small seed where all that love has grown afterwards.
Wow, star shadow. I learned that term actually from Nancy Clanton, and it's just
I've
an
learned it now.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing concept to think that the stars are light enough to produce a shadow. Yeah. So you do a lot of work on light pollution. So how did you come upon light pollution? I guess we all have our ways of how we got to this topic. How did you get here?
Well, to be honest, in Serbia, I haven't found any source that says anything about light pollution. And in my fourth year of bachelor studies, I met a professor from Maribor, Slovenia, Professor Igor Žiberna, and he taught us some basic basic instructions on how to map light pollution using SQMs and geographic informational systems. And it was really interesting to go out in the darkness with him, out in the dark in the city, and to take some measurements and to talk with him about some really, shall I say, stupid lighting we had, lighting installations, which I've never seen before. It's like I never noticed them. And at that point, it seemed so obvious not to
Right.
use those lightnings anymore. And I kind of got interested from that point forward and started experimenting and reading a lot about it myself. And like 2 or 3 months after, I wrote a paper for some student conference, and that was actually the first time anyone in Serbia talked about light pollution on some conference or any scientific level.
Wow. And so I get this experience a lot, which is I walk people through the problem of light pollution for the first time. What's your experience when you kind of see that dawning with someone?
You're asking me about the people I'm teaching and
Yeah,
how
when
they,
you see
yeah.
someone realize about light pollution for the first time, what's that experience like for you and for them?
For me, it's like exhilarating because I think it gives me strength to do all those popular scientific lectures all year, and it's kind of really. I have a rush of adrenaline when I'm saying something, and they're like, you see in their eyes, they're like, oh, how I haven't noticed this before. So basically, it's wonderful for me, and for those people, they're having similar experience as I have. Like they start to see lightning, which is unnecessary, which is not, shall I say, again, stupid, and
Hmm.
they start asking me. They always start asking me where they can read more and what they can do about it. So basically, I haven't met any person to whom I spoke, and they haven't show any kind of interest about it. So yeah.
So
Hmm.
I'm coming at this from I sell lighting every day and lots of outdoor lighting, and I'm not until I started, helping Jane with this show. Um, I wouldn't have considered myself a dark sky advocate. I would have been considered myself somebody interested in the issue and pursuing it from a business perspective as an entrepreneur. Um, and so in the sales process, it is extremely difficult, almost impossible right now, to convince people to embrace dark sky friendly or darkness friendly light fixtures on the exterior of their buildings. Okay, but when I hear reports from Jane, and I know what her and from yourself, there is no citizen that you encounter when we point out these issues to them that doesn't embrace the issue. So my question to you is, and maybe for Jane as well, have you ever encountered pushback from anybody in any of your presentations or lectures or your educational events where someone said, you know what, is it really that important? Isn't there more important issues that we need to relate with lighting? Or is it basically 99% of people embrace the issue and are interested in it?
Well, that's a good question because even though most of them are excited, at least as I was, but I don't think they're really ready to advocate that much for light pollution comparing to other environmental issues, because we have a lot of environmental issues in Serbia regarding air pollution, water pollution, and similar. So I think they think that it's a more pressing issue to talk about those kinds of pollution.
Hmm.
And light pollution is something that's they can see, they can observe and accept it that exists, but they have time to deal with that when they deal with these more pressing issues. So what I always or usually say to them, it's like they don't have to have that schedule time schedule for dealing with stuff like that. They can only just choose to come with us and fight light pollution besides other forms of pollution. So yeah, I think they accept the facts about light pollution, but they are not so willing to act on it comparing to other forms of pollution.
I would say that's a similar experience for me too, Diana, which is that when I walk people through the presentation that I wrote called Starving for Darkness, which is the namesake for this podcast, I never have had anyone come to me afterwards saying, I don't believe you, this isn't real. It provokes a deep sentiment in the listener that there suddenly is a cause that they weren't so aware of. I do completely agree with you that I would say when people are first learning about it, they don't know where to fit it in to the global climate crisis. And so, and I mean, quite frankly, in this safe space here, I think it's very underrated in terms of the impacts of light pollution as compared to other forms. I think they're all worrisome, but I don't think people are worried enough about light pollution. And that's something that's very hard to convey in the initial learning with an individual. So you are the president and founder of the NGO Carpe Noctem. I love that name, Seize the Night. Tell us about the work that you do. And you're so young, you're making waves. I love it. So tell us what you do.
Yeah, well, as for carpenoctem, we actually it's also a organization that is founded not only by students that I was a student when I found it, and but also by professors that kind of gave me support for all of it, especially my mentor for my PhD thesis, which is also about light pollution, Bjelajac. And I kind of mixed up a group of really enthusiastic people, young people that are not only enthusiastic about light pollution because they haven't heard of it before, but they're enthusiastic about teaching people about science popularization, which is, as we can see in the last year, really important when it comes to vaccine and all of those theories which are absurd. So yeah, we kind of gathered together and did some show on Researchers Night and talk with citizens about lightning. We held our lectures in darkness. We just turned on several small light bulbs, which were shaded, and of course, everyone was interested to see that workshop that is held in the darkness. Because why would people do that? So we gathered around that idea to teach people in fun and interesting way, which we used to teach them in all our lectures or workshops or everything. And especially for those public events such as astro hikes or festival we called Star Triathlon. We like those words, playing with words. It's called Star Triathlon because stars are the first thing that you cannot see because of light pollution. It's most visual thing that you cannot observe anymore. But triathlon because we wanted to emphasize or to explain our problem through three themes. One is astronomy and astrophysics, the other is nature and our environment, and the third is art and aesthetics. So basically, at our festival, we talked about light pollution with scientists. We had like camping with scientists. We had small fires, like 3 of them, and we put our scientists from college and our students, which were talking about different subjects, like astrophysicists were talking about the importance of darkness and astronomy observations, and on the other campfire were biologists talking about effects of light pollution on the environment, and on the third fire, we actually called psychologists to talk people about
Wow.
their fear of darkness. Yeah, and we before those campfires, we had the night hike in the area of national park, and after those lectures, we had jazz band playing
Hmm.
silently in the background and some dance around the fire. So basically, we kind of um, approached this subject from three angles. And what I wanted to say that all of our activities are fun and engaging in order to get people to follow us.
And this is why I started the podcast by saying you're a natural born educator, because you are not only talking the talk, but you are actually walking it, as in you are bringing people around a fireside, which is part of our evolution. And part of what isn't light pollution is having that nighttime fire for bonding and intimacy. And you've brought that right into your work. I think that's just absolutely fantastic. So, you talk a lot about how you strategize in delivering your message. And with that, you have a phrase, bring back the stars to our kids. Why this phrase?
Because I think it's the most emotional thing we can do. I think it's the most important thing we can do, because kids these days, they most of them haven't experienced the natural darkness, starry skies, or anything like that. And we actually had astro hike. We call them astro hikes. It's basically night hike in the woods in the national park. And during one of our astro hikes, a girl that saw so many stars was fascinated, and she used her phone to picture it and turn on the flashlight. And
Yeah.
it's like she's not informed, she doesn't know. So
Hmm.
it got down on me to see how those kids are actually not they cannot even see the problem. So basically, we
Yeah.
wanted to say that kids should learn about light pollution in schools, and we wrote a brochure which with like 50 or 60 pages, where we explain what light pollution is, using very nice graphics and design and really easy to read text. And we gave it to more than 400 schools in our district. So
Mm.
yeah, we like to hold a lot of lectures to the high schools and elementary schools. So this is actually one of our main activities.
I think it's absolutely fantastic that you're targeting children. This really speaks to one of my great hopes, which is that light pollution and all the concepts around it will be common knowledge. The way that we know smoking cigarettes is bad for us, and that's through education. It's not intuitive. Doctors in the 50s were like, sure, have a cigarette. It's not a big deal. So that's kind of where we're at with light pollution. So I love that you're bringing this information to the young minds to be able to get this into their heads early as a common sense concept. And I just wrote this down because you wrote scientific popularization, and so I just wrote it down as sci-pop. If that's not an expression already, it should be, because that's what you're doing, Diana. I think a lot of times scientists have trouble communicating their ideas outside of science. And the fact that you're bringing in graphic design, uh, brand strategy to get this information out, that's amazing. What's been the impact that you've seen from your work and your brand strategy?
Well, we are not really the experts in this field. So we had to read a lot and to learn a lot, even though it's not our main job. My main job is working as a teaching assistant. My colleagues are also researchers, and one few of them are how do you say, legal. Uh, like they are in the legal, and some of them
Mm.
are journalists. So basically, maybe three of us are having our interest in like research field is light pollution, but we learned a lot through this process because we realized that people are having better reaction when graphics are really nicely designed, easy to read, when we use similar colors, when we actually, I think it's the basic brand strategy. So when we use such a strategy to approach them, they are responding really well. And I think that it is really important for all NGOs or enthusiasts as individuals to learn those things, because you can talk as much as you want and speak about your ideas. If you don't get to the people and if you don't say your ideas right, and when I say right, I mean design the music you use in your background videos or anything like that, it won't work, because there's too many information and materials outside that you have to fight for attention. So yeah, we strategized a lot about our messaging and stuff like that. So I think it's giving us a pretty good response so far.
Yeah.
So I think that, what we're getting at is, while there's a lot of science out there, the word in the last year, the word science, has become a little bit of a prickly word. And it's been in some ways used as a mallet, to hit people with. And I think I was listening to a podcast with a guy named Ian McGilchrist, who is a neuroscientist. And he said that he sees largely the problem with science as an expression and as it relates to the general public is this separation of metaphysics and philosophy and science. And somehow, people have separated these two things into separate disciplines. But if science doesn't have access to philosophy or metaphysical expression or something along those lines, it has no purpose to people. It doesn't inspire them towards anything, right? So if somebody is studying something and saying, well, this is the science of it, and there's no meaning, it doesn't drive meaning into individuals, it doesn't make them understand their world better, I think it fails in its purpose, which is, this, I'm going to use the word enlightenment. And so we have a lot of problems with that. And so you're dealing with apathy, you're dealing with scientists, you're educating people, and you're trying to bring those two worlds together. But what's a little bit discouraging to me, and I hear this from Jane as well, is that yes, they come together, people have this beautiful experience, and then there's apathy after. And where they kind of forget about it and go back to their lives, and it's almost like we need a society-wide endarkenment. Like we need the opposite of the enlightenment. We need like an endarkenment where people, because what's left over from our primordial past is the fear of darkness. And what we've lost is the reverence of it and the awe of it. And so that has been forgotten, but the fear is not forgotten. The unknown part of it is still, in fact, it's probably been expanded and by a magnitude. How do you deal, my question to you, Dajana, is how do you deal with the fear of darkness when around those fires? Like, people are afraid of the dark, let's face it. In cities and when they're in the forest, if they've never been in the forest in the dark before, they become scared immediately. That is our biggest hurdle, is to get past this fear. How do you deal with that in your seminars?
Well, I actually have a story to tell about exactly that stuff. And the first time we organized our astro hike, there were like 5 of us, and we were talking about calling people to go with us into the darkness on some really nice trail. And we thought that there will be like 20 to 30 people, but 150 of them showed up. And we were pretty amazed and scared at the same time, because you're going into the woods, into the mountains with too many people. But it was really good experience, because when we walked through that part when we are entering the woods, it was still like sunsetting, and people were talking loudly, laughing, and stuff like that. But when we stopped at before entering the woods, where there was dark already, they all stopped in dead silence. Like no one told them to be quiet, but they stopped talking. And when we entered woods, everyone was whispering. And what changed? I think that they were only scared, and it's not like we have bears or wolves over there. The only thing that can get in your way is maybe some scared rabbit, and they didn't have no reason to start to stop talking. So after like maybe 15 or 20 minutes, they kind of relaxed and started talking again. So I think the people need to be comfortable into the darkness, to feel that they can spend some time in the darkness and not to feel scared. So that's our basic idea when we organize those public events in the dark. And in that festival we used a really small amount of lighting because we wanted to make really nice energy and the atmosphere with jazz music in the background in the woods, making them feel like they own that darkness, like they're in their natural habitat, even though it's not the truth and we will always be a bit scared of darkness, but just to make them feel a bit less alienated from that nighttime environment. So I think that our main message is not to not fear darkness. You should fear and you should respect it, because we are diurnal beings and we will never be completely adjusted to the darkness. But we should respect it because it's an integral part of our life and we need it. So that's our message. We don't want to turn off all the lightning and go back to the Middle Ages. We want to make it as minimal as possible and to teach them how they can pay their respect to their darkness, and how to bring it more their darkness in their lives. So yeah, we are always using, when you said that science is a bit dry, when you say science says that and that, yeah, it doesn't work that way. Actually, tomorrow I'm having also another lecture for my students, and I'm teaching them through music. I'm holding like science popular musical lecture about light pollution, where I'm presenting most important issue through some of the songs which are widely popular, like I wear my sunglasses at night and then I put an owl that wears glasses. And I teach them about that. Why an owl needs glasses, and I think it's a bit more approachable to them. They're like feeling really nice and they're amused, and they're more likely to talk about that lecture afterwards. Then if I said them, science says that sea turtles are rapidly decreasing. You get it. So basically, I think that fun and the creativity behind science should do the work when talking to people.
I totally use cute animals myself, and I tell my audience that I'm deliberately manipulating them with photos of cute animals. So it works. You know, people are not as attracted to a dung beetle as they are to an owl. But they both have stories to tell us about light pollution. And so I think it's great that you're kind of delving into a slight personification of animals to open up the hearts and heads of people to think more about what's happening to wildlife. I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I also love the way that you describe darkness and our relationship to it. I think you're absolutely right. We're never going to eradicate fear around darkness. We can develop a respect for it, though, and I think a reverence as well. But you're right. We are diurnal animals and we are active mostly during the day. So I think that that's a really amazing line to draw of expectation of what you can expect people to feel about darkness. It's more reasonable than saying straight up reverence, because there is that aspect of fear that's always going to be
Well,
there.
fear is reverence. It's the same
It's
thing.
also true.
You know, like
That's
when
true.
you're afraid of something, you revere it. And that's why a sunny day at the beach, people don't talk about the sublime while they're at the beach. They may talk about it at a cliff looking down on the beach, on a mountaintop, where there's an element of danger to it. That's fundamental to awe and reverence, is that fear. I don't know how far we can get, Jane and Diana, with anthropomorphizing animals. I think there's a limit to it.
Yeah.
Here's the penguins. Oh, penguins, or here's the cuttlefish in or whatever. We pick these particularly cute animals. We personify them and say, hey, look, they're struggling. I think that endears some sympathy, perhaps more pity than sympathy. What can we do for the turtles? I'm going to run onto the beach and push them the right way, like a form of pity. It doesn't endear respect for nature, which is what we need. We need respect for the natural environment, for darkness. How do we, if we want to create this movement, because Jane and I always call this a movement, the darkness movement, how do we reach people and sort of shake them and say, look, this is probably the most solvable environmental problem we have. It is real pollution. It's real, and we can fix it now. Unlike a lot of the other problems that we have that are largely not fixable. People are like, when I encounter people on climate change, that you'll say, oh yeah, I think that we should have clean energy, but they don't want to do nuclear energy. Okay, it's like then you want to change. You want to go back to the Middle Ages, like you said. If we can't have grid scale power, humans are going to take a big step back. So it's like that unrealistic part. Whereas with this darkness issue, we can solve it and have all the safe streets we want. Those two things are not. They are not against one another. Good lighting and safety and darkness are not opposite to one another. They totally can be done. How do we get anthropomorphizing is probably the first stage, but how do we get past that into a place where we really speak to people and get their attention?
Well, as I said, one of our main ideas is to talk to kids and to talk to their parents that their kids will never experience the dark skies. I think that that's the element which will provoke people of our ages, and maybe not too many teenagers will react to that notion, but people that are decision makers will. They would stop for a moment to think about it. I always like to give examples of, I think that every light pollution fighter talks about 1994 LA earthquake, when people called to talk about that sinister sky above them, not knowing that it's a Milky Way. Yeah, I think that that's not a great thing that happened, but great reference for us to say that it can really happen, that we can really shift our baseline towards darkness. So basically, I think that when talking to people, we should let them know we should touch their feelings when talking about darkness. And not only that, we can also provide them with enough ridiculous and stupid examples of lightning. I think that's even better, because I had an idea to make a photo of street where there are like dozens of billboards, LED billboards, and to switch them with trees, and to show them, like, is this really necessary? We can put those trees there and have more ecological lighting, which will do us better, and to show them some forms of lightning which are really stupid, and they don't realize it, they don't see it, because it became integral part of their urban environment. It's like we see darkness as something unnatural, and this is totally crazy. So yeah, I like to give them like a wake up call and to talk about the I need a word for it, like nonsense that we are making with so many lightning, and to always say to them that we don't fight against the lightning, we fight against stupid lightning. So yeah, I think that's maybe one of the best way to approach it.
I'm going to expand on something, Mike, you said about the animals, which is that cute animals isn't enough. It's not enough. Cute or otherwise, wildlife has never been enough. So that's the problem, is that if wildlife and what we are actually doing across the planet with light pollution and lots of other forms of climate change, if that were enough, we wouldn't be here. So I don't mind throwing in a cute animal or two just to try and make it a little bit more helpful. But I know, Dajana, that you talk about your unique branding strategy, and this kind of cuts into, I think, if we really want to make a difference, we have to put this in terms of the human loss, which is why you
Yes.
are saying things like your children are not seeing the stars, for the emotionally gripping truth of
Yes.
that. Because that's how you will get to people to change, is if you talk about the human loss and what's the loss for their children. So how do you bring in aspects of health to your work and your branding strategy?
Well, I don't know if you've seen it, but over our Instagram account, Facebook account, we post like 3 or 4 times a week with like facts about light pollution, where we just trigger their imagination with why you shouldn't use your phone before sleep. How many hours are you affected with the self-luminous devices
Mm.
after you put it down and go to sleep? What is the percentage of carcinoma diseases if you don't have enough balanced circadian rhythm and stuff like that? We basically teach them about the possible outcomes of not having enough darkness in their lives. But I think what strikes them the most is that usage of ICTs and the self-luminous devices before going to bed. I think that's the part where most parents are maybe a bit more interested to hear because of their kids, of course, and of course, we as well. And I think that that's one of the ways to approach it. And maybe we can actually use ICTs and technology itself to get them out there to use their astronomy apps or something like that. Loss of the Night is a wonderful idea to get people to measure it on their own, to feel like they're participating something. So I think that this is maybe one of the most usual ways we approach promoting health life in urban nighttime environment.
And when Dajana, so we get in trouble for using too many acronyms. ICT would be Information and Communications Technology for those listening.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so she's talking about your iPad or your laptop or your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm from the lighting industry, and I do a podcast called Get a Grip on Lighting. And so we've interviewed a lot of. Yeah, thank you. So we interview a lot of scientists, okay, about human-centric lighting, circadian photobiology, these sort of theme that's within the lighting industry now. And there's a lot of investment in technology to create lighting systems which aid in circadian entrainment, okay? But the most interesting part of all of this, and some of the sponsors of Get a Grip on Lighting don't like it when I say this, but natural darkness and darkness is the fundamental tenet of anything related to human-centric lighting. It is almost 99% of the argument, right? So when people are talking about, oh, we're going to give you a 0.3 circadian stimulus in the morning at 5,000 Kelvin, and then we're going to lower that to 0.1 circadian stimulus at this time, and the Kelvin temperature is going to be this, and at high noon we're going to raise the lighting to this. It begs all manner of questions like, well, do I need sunglasses inside then? Because apparently I needed sunglasses outside. And, or do I need sunscreen inside with these new, begs all manner of questions like that. But at the end of the day, if someone does not restore darkness when it comes time for sleep, and even before sleep, like you need darkness leading up to it, all of the gains from human-centric lighting are lost. There's no gain if you don't do that. And then subsequent to that, every health effect that is listed as being helped by human-centric lighting or circadian photobiology are all benefits of better sleep. That's it. Human-centric lighting delivers better sleep, which then you have all these other things, lower cancer rates, less stress, less anxiety. All the other things are extensions of that. And so to me, the number one issue in the lighting industry is darkness, providing darkness, getting that to people and getting that into people's heads. The question I want to ask you as a relation to that, so you could add sort of some of that specific stuff to your message, that there are real human health impacts from having your phone in your face at night. It's very real. Although it's like a chronic low level kind of real, like sort of like a low poison in the water or something like that. But how do we get past this cult of safety? And safety is another one of those words, like in the last year, like science, that has kind of lost its meaning in a way. People talk about safety, and I think people are becoming, and especially in a place like Ontario, which is under extreme restrictions right now, they talk about safety and they're not sure what that means anymore. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that does safety mean other people are safe, or does it mean I'm safe? And so with lighting, you have the same issue. You have this safety cult that's formed in lighting, where there's no maximum light levels. And the most amount of uniformity is the best. Uniform light everywhere. Light trespass is not considered real trespass. Light pollution is not considered real pollution. All these things are like, yeah, that's nice. How do we get to the people that are in charge of the safety cult and get them to leave it? Because it's a cult, man, in lighting, in the lighting industry, that you dare not trespass on our lighting. We need this back lot of the factory lit up like a prison yard all night long, or we're going to get sued. Someone's going to sue us. The insurance company doesn't like it. They're all members of a cult that believe a fallacy that we need to change. How do we get to that? And I mean, that's really the challenge for the darkness movement, is really to get people out of the cult of connecting outdoor light at night, high Kelvin temperature light, uniform light, as much light as possible, get them out of the cult and into the new, better lighting design world. That's my question. I don't know if it's for Jane or for the industry or for Dajana, but it's a cult, man, and people need to really get out of it. There.
I have a redirect for you, Dajana, that sifts down what Mike has just been saying, which is that you have a whole theory about bringing on guests who are like-minded to your work. And you spoke of a bicycler, a female bicycler, who talked about the perils of darkness. Can you talk a little bit more about that with regard to Mike's safety talk?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wish I have an answer, Mike. I wish, and I'll let you know when I have it, because I agree completely with you about that cult of feeling safe under the highly illuminated areas. Yeah, and as for the Snežana Radojčić, I'm inviting all of you to follow her, because she also puts some posts in English, and she is currently at the South America, and she will be coming to North America. She started her trip in March when COVID started. So it was quite a journey for her. And as for the lecture she was holding, we wanted to, in Serbia, we don't have too many speakers, guests, which are really close to the light pollution issue. I mean, we don't have them. So we needed to improvise, and it showed as a really good thing, actually, because we needed to be more creative when talking to people. So we thought hardly about who to invite, and that person is not a scientist or anyone, but more of a person that people like to hear about, to learn about her lifestyle, and etc. So we talked, and the actually wanted to talk about with Snežana Radojčić, and ask her if she would like to tell something more about her experiences in darkness. And we were a bit afraid because she's a female cyclist going through all Asia and southern parts of Europe. And we ourselves actually expected to hear some crazy, scary stories as well. And when we talked with her about it, she was like, no, I didn't have any bad experiences during the night. She had bad experiences during the day because she met a lot of people during the day. During night, nobody went to her tent or tried to do anything funny with her. And I think she actually showed people that you can be a female cyclist going into the Gobi Desert in the middle of nowhere and stargazing under a magnificent night sky, and you will be safe there. No one will touch you because you're just going through some really nice landscapes. Well, people should be really I don't know how to talk to them about it, because they expect when it's dark you will be attacked. It's like a premise. If I don't have lightning, I will be under some sort of attack. And this is not true, because in Novi Sad, the safest parts of the cities are probably in dark, and in some areas where people are sleeping, there's some residential buildings, and no one is going around there like in 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. But when you go to the city center and visit some maybe problematic clubs and areas where people are drinking and celebrating something, those areas are a bit more let's say alarming. So they shouldn't think that the darkness is equal to the criminal. They should think that those specific clubs, areas, and cafes are equal to the criminal if they're gathering criminal groups of people. So I think that should be, people should talk about it a bit more, to make some sort of a map of criminal activities during the day or during the night, and to show them that some parks in the city are not the most dangerous places, but the city center is, where there are people, there could be some sort of criminal activities.
There are,
So, yeah.
there are areas where people should be careful. I'm not going to, tell people to, go lay in a park in downtown Toronto. But I would say that, well, there's no stars to see there anyway, but, in places that are naturally dark, that there's natural darkness, the preponderance of people that are going to cause problems, they're just not there. There's not a lot of people there. But the correlation between alcohol and violence at night, and drugs and violence at night, is very well proven. So if you stay away from places where people are drinking alcohol, and you're not, so most people are assaulted at night by drunk people or are drunk themselves. Even the college campuses of America, you listen to the reports, it's always, we were at this keg party and then this happened, or people were drinking, 21-year-olds were drinking whiskey for the first time and then this happened, and so there's a real connection between alcohol and violence at night, which is not laid out well enough for people, that they need to know that. And then being in areas where lots of people are drinking, you significantly increase chances of problems of all manner of different kinds of violence and that. So yes, that's interesting. Her name is Snezhana. What's her last name? Snezhana. Did I get it right?
Radojic. Oh, I can send you her contact
Yeah, we'll post it
info
on
so
the
you
we'll
can
post it
share
on the thing. So a lot of people are gonna have problems with
Nice.
the Snezhana Brahm. That's a tough one
Yeah.
for
It's
English
a, it's
speakers.
a in cyclonomad, so I
Okay.
think it would be easier to find it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Her Instagram and Facebook account.
Dispelling the fears of the night, Jane Slade. That's a tough one, man.
Yeah, it's not easy. And I think that, Diana, what you're doing is that you are really developing a community across generations. And I think that's just absolutely fantastic because I mean, you're not in a school for branding, but you certainly are becoming an expert at it because you're hitting all the right sides of it, which is logos, colors, emotional attachment, creating community, creating a sense of place. So you're doing all of this. I want to ask you, why does night matter to you?
I guess when I heard about light pollution, it was because it was something new to me. It was something that I think that at that point it struck me the most that I haven't realized it. So it was, as more I learn about it, I learned more things I am grateful for, and when it comes to darkness. So right now I have like dozens of reasons I like to spend some time in the darkness and to respect it and to talk to people how they should respect it as well. So I think that the sight and the scenery of a night sky and the starry night skies above us is one of the crucial things that should be preserved, especially for the future generations, which is why I'm so keen on, let's bring stars back to the children. But I think that not only the night sky scenery, but also the notion of not respecting the wildlife and other forms of living beings and taking them their night away, for me is like bringing the night in during our entire existence for us. Like putting us a mask over the face and not letting us live like we should live. That's like for the nocturnal beings. So I think that that's kind of the most important thing for me now.
You said the word gratitude, which is very
Yeah.
interesting. I listened to what's the guy's name? Roland Griffiths. Okay, that's his name. He's a PhD scientist at Johns Hopkins University, and you know what he studied, Jane? Psychedelic
What?
drugs. Okay,
Ooh.
and so he experimented. He got a permission to do a study, I think in the late 90s, on the use of psilocybin as a psychedelic experience, and it was under controlled, it was a controlled experiment. And what he did was he gave people psilocybin, okay, in a dark room with no lights on and just some music, okay, and he recorded their experiences. And you wouldn't believe how closely their experiences align with people who talk about dark sky experiences. It's almost like the same thing is happening without the drugs. That idea of being having gratitude, feeling awe at the universe and their place in it, and being able to step back with humility and look at the world, and how closely those things align. And it's interesting to me that if humans actually look at their history, Dajana, like the Great Pyramid of Giza points at the North Star, the middle star of Orion's belt every 12,000 years, and the Sphinx looks at the constellation Leo at the same night exactly perfectly. And there's all manner of structures in ancient world where the sun shines in exactly into the cave on on the summer solstice, perfectly illuminating the inside of these caves. Our ancestors were very aware of the stars. I mean, you hear about sacrifices, people burning their best lamb and sending the smoke up to the heavens, because that's where God was. That's what the awe and the beauty was. I think you're right that you the only way to this is to restore that gratitude or give people back that sense of a place in the universe. And it doesn't come from grandiose egotistical narcissism that we have a lot of. It comes from the opposite, which is like a sense of gratitude and humility and seeing the vastness of the universe. And I think that what you're doing is such a wonderful service to the world, Jane. I just can't, it's so wonderful.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see the community that you're building and that you are really bringing this information to families, to the basic unit of our society. I think that that's such a great way to really bring this learning and relearning between people. It's not just that I know it by myself, but I know it with you. I know it with you, my brother, my sister, my parents. So it becomes really entrenched in how we kind of move through the world. I think the way that you're approaching it from an education standpoint is brilliant. So, what's on
Thank
the
you.
horizon for your work?
Yeah, well, I wanted to add for what Mike said and you as well is that I think that maybe I left out, and maybe it's also really important that people, when they are surrounded by darkness in uh, natural surroundings, they don't have too many things they observe with their eyes because it's dark. They are not triggered. They cannot. They are not always in their heads thinking about things. They are like more into themselves, and the only sight that provides them with light is the light of the our night sky. So basically, I think that's where our questions and our wanderings are starting to show up. So that's why people have always gazed into the night skies. And I think that in our hikes and our public events that are in the darkness and in the woods, this is also one of the most important things, because people are in the darkness and they can only rely on each other. You know, they don't see exactly where they are going. They need to trust us. They need to trust the person before them and after them, to warn them about some, I don't know, mud or hole or something like that. So I think that's where we are more emotionally fragile, when we are scared a bit and we need to trust each other, and that's where the stronger bonds are created. And I think that's why they're so emotionally touched when they come to our events. So basically, yeah, and I think that one of our goals in the future is for sure to continue doing events like that, and not only to do events with hundreds of people, but also in some smaller circles, like 20 to 30 people, where we would take them to the woods to spend the night there without their phones, without anything that can activate their brain, but only to feel the darkness, to feel that vastness of the space and of the galaxies and the night sky above them. So this is one of our goals for the future. And right now we are like trying to get more attention to our NGO for donations, and we developed some concept. We call it in Serbian "Osvezdise", because in Serbian, when you say "osvesti se", it means raise your awareness, and zvezda is star. So basically, it's kind of mixture
Hmm.
of words. In English, it would
Hmm.
sound like starify yourself,
Hmm.
something like that. Yeah. So we are providing we are making some candles of soy wax and something like that, so that candles can bring them back to the periods when we had no lighting, and where they can kind of be grateful for the darkness around them. And it's also kind of a brand where we would like to put those badges and those candles or whatever, and to say to everyone, come to your senses and go back to the stars.
The reduction in stimulus, what you said there, when
Yeah,
reduction in stimulus,
yeah.
right? It leads to positive outcomes, right? It's almost like the real I don't want to get into that, but there's an epidemic, say, of overstimulation. Like that's an epidemic.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like people are just
Yes.
constantly, it's like being on a mental roller coaster over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was fun the first time. Yeah, it was cool the second time. Now you've been on the roller coaster for, 7,652 days. And
Yeah.
you getting people off that is very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah, we also don't like to play music or anything. When we are walking, we are just walking and talking, not doing anything else. When we are sitting and waiting for a telescope to stargaze at the sky, we just don't let people play their music or be too loud. We just want them to be in stillness.
I love what you said about a shared vulnerability in the darkness, and it's so the opposite of what's happening, which is that, we're all behind our phones, on social media showing the most like perfect life ever. And I will show you this beautiful angle of my face and the most lovely family photo, and there's a lack of shared vulnerability that's been happening. But when you're in the dark and you're around a fire and you're cuddled up next to a new friend, and you hear something behind you, you're both going to jump and comfort each other. And this is sort of a lack of experience that we have in that way. And what's so funny is about light. Well, we think of light as sort of being this liberating experience, but it shows every last thing in your environment. And when the lights are off, things melt away. And suddenly there's just actually a more limitless environment around you. So it's counterintuitive how the lit environment is actually very limiting. And I just love how you talk about it in terms of a shared vulnerability at night. We are
Yeah.
coming up on an hour. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners at Starving for Darkness?
Starve for darkness.
Stay hungry.
Be relentless when protecting the dark, and just make sure you have a really good community, and to build a really good community that you will share with your enthusiasm for darkness.
Well, we thank you so much for building your community, and we just hope to make a difference alongside you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dajana.
you very much. It was really nice to talk to you.
Psst. Psst. Hey, don't go anywhere yet, because we have some instructions for you. It's Michael and Greg from Get a Grip on Lighting. Yeah, we do the ads for Starving for Darkness. You got to go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeyStonetech.com. Light made easy, Greg.
You've been rattled that off real well. There's a new line of exterior fixtures from Keystone that they have available, and they're going to continue to expand on it. And they're doing things right. And one of those that they're doing right is in their wall packs, they're making them full cutoff. That's going to eliminate undesirable sky glow and glare. And that's what we all want. It looks nice. It fits the profile of a lot of your old nasty fixtures and has multiple wattages and kelvins that can cover you there.
Get rid of those old nasties. Go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeyStonetech.com. Thanks for listening to Starving for Darkness. Bye for now.